Um, let's get started. I'd like to call to order the September 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Cold Spring Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm Aaron Wolf. I'm the chair of the board. We also have Eric Worth, Donald McDonald, Laura Bosey, John Martin, our other board members. We've got a couple of, and we also have John First, our village attorney, who will be here for the 21 Parsonage portion of the meeting, and Michael Mell, who is the board secretary, who's managing the Zoom and taking minutes. Got just a few things on the agenda. I'm going to start with some comments. We'll do a review of minutes, and then we have the 11 Benedict Road public hearing. We're going to do that first. I expect that's probably going to take about an hour. And following that, we will have the 21 Parsonage discussion, which Donald McDonald will lead as the acting chair, and I will depart the meeting at that point. I assume everyone can hear me and you're not all just staring blankly at your computers. Great. Okay, so I just had a couple of comments. I met the village's new building inspector, Charlotte Mountain. She came to my house to close out 3 open building permits that I had. So we had a good talk about zoning and gardening, and I think that she's going to be a good improvement for the village and the process of the zoning board and the other village boards. So if you see her, say hi. She's here 3 days a week, all day Saturday, and then a couple of half days during the week. She's part-time, and she also works for Mamaroneck, I think. Second item that I want to talk about, it sounds like you might be coming to the end of the board's work on 21 Parsonage. So I wanted to say a special thank you to Donald McDonald, who's been serving as the acting chair during this meeting. I know that when he agreed to rejoin us on the board after many years earlier and then a couple of years off, he was not expecting to jump into this kind of application as a board chair. So thank you very much, Donald, and also to the other board members and participants on this application. All right, so review of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes that we could review. I just emailed these to the board members, so if you have not seen these yet, please check your email. It would have come in about 10, 15 minutes ago. So we've got the 8:20 minutes, which were only about 21 Parsonage. I will leave those to you, Donald, if you want to review those in your portion of the meeting. And then we also have the 8:04 minutes. Is that right?
8:06.
8:06, thank you. Which is half about 21 Parsonage, but we could certainly review the 53 Parrott Street portion of those minutes when we're all here.
What do we do? I'd suggest doing the Parsonage Street minutes when we re-engage Parsonage Street later in the meeting.
Okay.
And to not hold everybody else up and just do the portion that relates to the other applications. And
okay, great. So if everybody has a copy of the 8:06 minutes, we're going to start with the part that is the public hearing for 53 Parrott Street.
Aaron, this is Michael. So I understand you're going to be approving a portion of an action that's represented on minutes now and then a portion of it later. So there's going to be 2 approvals of each minutes?
No. I guess what what we're going to do is discuss only half of the minutes for 8-6 right now. And then when I leave the meeting, Donald and the other board members will discuss and approve the minutes for 8-20. Or maybe we should hold off on, I don't know, let's just do half of the minutes now for 8-6 and at least get the changes down, and then we can vote on them at a later date if we need to.
Oh, that would make it clearer for the record to approve the minutes as a whole.
Okay, so why
Thank
don't
you.
we just run through the changes? I'll jot those down, and then when we come back to our next meeting, we can vote on the 8-6 minutes in total. And if you, Donald, handle the other half of that at your portion of the meeting, then we'll be all set the next time we meet. I'm sure that's clear as mud, but let's give it a shot.
Are we doing, we're doing the entire minutes, right?
We're starting at the part that says public hearing for 53 Parrott Street on 8-6.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, we could do the whole thing. And I'll just,
it seemed, I didn't have any issues with it. Public hearing for 53 Parrott. Right. Mhm.
I don't see anything that I would change here.
I would just say on page 3, where it says board comment, second line, a chairlift. I would say an exterior chairlift would be expensive.
Okay. Got it.
I don't have anything. They look fine to me.
Thank you.
I have a comment about with a workshop for 11 Benedict Road.
Mm-hmm.
Bulleted list, first item, it says existing, non-conforming. Should that be pre-existing? Does that work? I mean, that it doesn't mean it pre-exists the code?
Technically, the reality is that non-conforming automatically means that it's existing. So even though it is, people do say existing non-conforming, it's like saying the same thing twice.
Yeah, I don't know if it was pre-existing the code
Just
though.
say non-conforming.
It's definitely non-conforming, so we could remove the word existing. I don't remember when this house was built. Do we know, Madeline, do you know by any chance, since you're here? Michael, could you unmute her for a second, just so we know? Thank you.
I could go to my file to see if I have the record of the date of the house was built, but I'm not 100% sure. I have to go look.
Was it before 1967? Do we know?
I'm not sure.
All right. What if,
1966.
think maybe, I'm not sure.
Oh, wait, the owner is on the call.
Hi, Madeline, it's Rose. Yes, it was 1966.
so that
Okay.
would make it a pre-existing non-conforming then. So let's call it pre-exist.
Yeah, what's wrong with pre-existing non-conforming? Means that it pre-existed the code and it's non-conforming to the current code.
Current code, right.
That's
okay.
fine with me.
No, it's okay.
Is that good for you, Donald?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. And does that address your concern, Eric?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I don't have any
I
other.
had personally noted, I think I was on unmute. Donald, your voice is going in and out at times. I'm not sure why.
Oh, I keep getting the thing saying the my internet connection is something wavy or not. It's
Unstable. Try
it's not
keeping your,
unstable. Right.
maybe turn the
Wow.
camera off.
Turn the camera off.
Sometimes yeah, that can make the voice
I don't.
connection
I don't
better.
do that.
Video, turn the video off.
Oh, turn video off.
There's probably a stop video button at the bottom left. There you go.
But then make sure that you turn the microphone back on when you want to speak.
Okay, how's that?
That's
Yeah,
better.
that's better.
Seems better, thank you.
All right.
Okay, any other comments about the 53 Parrot Street and below?
No, not for me.
Should we go ahead and finish the top portion of this minute just to get it done? So
Yeah, why-
there's less.
I it's pretty quick. It's not, pretty easy.
All right, go ahead. You guys finish it up.
I have no comments.
Neither do I.
It's pretty much what happened.
I'm fine with it.
So should we make a motion? I move to approve the minutes with the, comments that we made. I don't think there's been any changes made, so basically it's as written.
There were a couple of minor changes.
Were there minor changes? Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Oh, yeah,
much changed.
that's right, with the chair lift. So I make a motion that, with those minor changes, that we do approve the minutes of 8/6, 2020.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
I
Right.
Aye.
Okay, we've approved 8-6. Thank you.
So we
So
go to-
I'll leave
8/3.
8-3.
No, what is it? 8/20.
8:20.
Sorry.
8:20. So I think you should do that after I leave the meeting, if that's all
Okay.
right.
Good.
yeah, that's all. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you. So next on our agenda is 11 Benedict Road public hearing. So I would like to open the public hearing for 11 Benedict Road. We have an application by Madeline Sanchez, who is the architect representing Antonio and Rose Skenga. And this is for a 12-foot variance to the front yard setback for the construction of a 2-story addition, which is a garage and I think an office and bathroom. I don't have that right in front of me, but that's not important for the purposes of the variance. So I have seen the return receipts for the notices, and Madeline has sent me the affidavit for the public hearing sign, and I saw it up there myself. So we are good with that, and I think we're ready to proceed with the presentation of the project. So the way this will work is our normal procedure. We will hear from the applicant, and we will ask questions of the applicant once the presentation is through. We will hear from any members of the public who wish to speak. I have not received any emails or letters about the project, so everything will be happening here tonight. All of the materials have been posted on the village website. If there's any, I can't see everybody's who's here, but if you want to view them, you can go to coldspringny.gov and go to the zoning board section under boards and committees and then current applications, and you will find all of the materials for 11 Benedict. So with all that said, Madeline, I'll turn it over to you to present the project and what you're doing and why you believe the variance should be granted. So.
Thank you. Aaron, will I be able to share my screen?
Yes, you certainly can, and Michael can turn that on.
I just turned it on. You should be able to share it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So, as Aaron said, I'm Madeline Sanchez. I'm the architect representing Rose and Tony Skanga, and they will be moving from their current home on Eustis Road in the North Highlands to 11 Benedict Road in the village for their retirement and aging in place. One of the most important aspects of living and aging in place for the Skangas is to have a garage so they don't have to shovel off snow off their cars in a storm as they age, and that it be attached so they don't have to walk in the snow and ice to their cars. The current house is a split level home, so we would be adding a 2-car garage to the lower level and then adding a 3rd bedroom, bathroom, and a laundry office combination room to the upper level, which is essentially the street level. So I'll share my screen. Okay, so let me get out of the way. So just to orient you as to where the house is, this is an aerial view. Benedict Road is off of Chestnut Street, in between Drug World and Food Town. And Benedict Road is a cul-de-sac. And then underneath Benedict Road is Kemble Avenue, because there's a big steep drop here. So I'm going to show you the house from the aerial view and then some views of the neighborhood, just to orient you as to where the house is. So this is the area of Benedict Road looking south. So it's like driving down here and looking at the road. This is 11 Benedict Road to the right there. And then this is taken from looking down up to the north from the cul-de-sac, and that's 11 Benedict Road there. And this is a view of the cul-de-sac itself. So if you're standing here, there's 11 Benedict Road and then the house next door. And this is the space between the two houses. So the front of the house as you can see, looks like it's a one-story home. Benedict Road slopes down, so the slight slopes down as well. And then this is the existing one-story family room, and then an existing one-story portico. So you can see how the ground slopes down. And this is the driveway that you see on the aerial view. So that driveway cut with the blacktop. Our proposal is to remove these two elements here, the one-story piece and then the portico piece. So that's the area of the work right here, and replace it with the garage and the addition above as well. So if you see in this view, all of this would come out and be replaced. So with the addition, there'll be no additional blacktop, there'll be no additional, there'll be no removal of trees. The only thing that we would be removing is this patch of grass here, because the addition would come out to that point here, not going any further than what's already there. So we're essentially replacing what's there. And there'll be a trade-off in the square footage, which I'll go over later.
Can I ask a quick question while you're right there? So
Yes.
are the cars coming in the driveway and then turning into the garage?
Correct.
Okay, so you're keeping the current driveway.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
So behind the house is a pool and a shed for the pool. And then there's a fence running along the west side, and that's where the drop-off starts. This is the other fence that encloses the pool. This is the backyard looking south to the neighbor's house. And this is the detail of the fence that shows the drop. This is the neighbor to the south, which is this house here on the Google map. And this house has a garage that's on the lower level and you enter on the upper level, because a lot of houses do that on Benedict Road because of the slope of the road itself. This is the neighbor directly to the north, the next door neighbor, and this is another neighbor to the north. There's a mix of one-story and two-story structures on the road, but so most of the time the two-story is revealed because of the slope. This is the neighbor across the street. This house here, they have that same idea of entering on the top level and then the garage entry on the lower level. This is the neighbor directly across the street, this house here. This is the Kasparian's house down on Kemble Avenue, further down the slope. And this is another house on the cul-de-sac. So that's just to give you some context. So this is the existing site plan. This is Benedict Road here as it curves. This is the existing house. And then this is that one-story piece, and that's the portico. This is the blacktop driveway, and this is the entry on that upper level, and that's that retaining wall that holds the earth back. Go back to that, to here, so you could see the retaining wall. I didn't point it out earlier. There it is. That's the retaining wall that holds back the earth. So behind the house is the pool and the shed, and there's that chain link fence, and everything west of that is basically steep down. And then the other fence that encloses the pool. Blow up of the existing site plan with an overlay showing the required setbacks. And as was mentioned previously, the existing house was built in 1966 before the current zoning ordinance came into effect. So the house is already non-complying. This is the 25-foot front yard setback that curves and follows the curve of the road, 10-foot side setback, 10-foot side setback, and 20-foot rear setback. And I've labeled here that basically all of this back in here isn't really buildable anyway because of the steep slope. So because the house is built and sited on the parallel to the rectilinear part of the site, the house infringes and encroaches already into the front yard setback. So there's basically here's the line of the front yard setback. There's the house. You have this triangular wedge piece that's encroaching into the front yard setback. And at its greatest point, it's 8 feet to the corner. You have about 17 feet left before you hit the property line there. So when we remove this piece and remove this piece, we'll be removing 234 square feet of the this piece here, and then another 93 square feet for the portico. So it's a total of 327 square feet that we are taking out. So this is a drawing of what we're proposing, the site plan. So we're proposing a footprint of 540 square feet. And so the net gain is 213 square feet. And even though we're adding to the side of the house, we're asking for a variance in the front yard setback because of the way this curves and follows the road. So because we're proposing to align the addition with the existing house, and the existing house doesn't comply, the addition also doesn't comply. So the addition would also create this wedge into the front yard setback. And at its greatest point, it's 12 feet as opposed to 8 feet, which it is now. So we're adding 4 feet. And then you'd have 13 feet left over to the property line. So we looked at other options of adding the garage so that we wouldn't have to apply for a variance. But because of the pool and because of the other restrictions on the site, that was not, we didn't really have much luck. So in this scheme, we said, okay, how about if we tuck it back and push it back, set it back from the road so that we're not, in the front yard setback, but then we're in conflict with the pool. And that didn't work very well. And then we thought, well, what if we keep this piece that's here and then push it into this corner, but that's also very close to the pool, and we really can't be that close because that would infringe upon the structure of the wall. That would compromise the structural wall of the pool. So that didn't work either. And then we thought, well, what if we detach the garage and leave an apron around the pool so we could keep the structural integrity of the pool wall? But that was problematic because now we're going over the side yard setback, the 10 feet side yard setback. And that even brings us closer to the neighbor than if we were to keep it over here. We summarized that this was the most practical location. It made sense to put it there because the blacktop driveway is already there. And in terms of how the house is used, it made logical sense. Just enlarge this so that it's a little easier to read. So these are the architectural plans. This is the existing first floor and the existing second floor. And just a little background, the Skangas are currently renovating the existing house. The renovation focuses on the interior and it's actually almost complete, and they've added new windows and really done some wonderful improvements. So what we're asking for now is essentially phase 2 of the project. So here is the piece that's being demolished and the portico that's being demolished. And in the elevation, you can see that that's the dashed elements of the pieces that are being demolished as well. So what's being proposed on the ground floor is the garage would be 23 feet by 23.6. So it's the width of the house, and it's a 2-car garage. And then above would be 13 feet out from the existing house would be the 3rd bedroom, the bathroom, and the new laundry in the office. Another note is that the original house was a 3-bedroom house, and it is currently 2 bedrooms. So adding this other bedroom would restore it back to its 3-bedroom count house. So the new elevation, this is the elevation from the south looking at the garage. and that's the elevation from the street. The Skangas at first wanted to have the addition be the entire footprint of the garage, but it seemed a little massive. So we decided to set back the second floor so that it would be a little more open. So this is the garage piece, and this is the half of it that would be the addition above. So this addition would have a positive impact on the neighborhood. And we think that it's in keeping with the context of the other split level homes and two-story structures on the block with the garage on the lower level. And because of how the design sets back, it would have less of a massing impact. And also because much of what we're doing replaces what's already there, it also minimizes the impact. By making room for it, by taking something away, it's like the net impact isn't as great. The variance is minimized because it's basically a triangular wedge that's encroaching. It's not like it's the entire piece. So you'd be going from 8 feet to 12 feet and 11% coverage to 13% coverage. Environmentally, we won't be removing any trees. And except for that patch of grass, the landscaping remains intact. And we will be using the existing blacktop so that we won't need any new blacktop. There'll be gutters, and so the runoff will be minimally impacted because we're basically replacing the existing roof of what's already there and adding about another 200 square feet of roof. So we feel that what we have proposed is the best location after we looked at other options, given that the lot is restricted by the existing pool and the drop off in the back. And we've concluded that there's no other viable option for a two-car garage to meet the client's goals and needs that would not require a variance. And we hope that it will be granted. Thank you.
Any questions from the board at this point? Thank you, Madeline.
Very good presentation.
Thank you. And I can share my screen again if anybody wants to see.
Can we get
I know I
the
went kind of
site
quickly.
plan back, proposed site plan?
Sure. This one. Mhm.
That one, yeah, that's it, yeah.
So am I looking at that right, that the front yard setback begins at it hits all three of those rectangles? Is that right? It begins in the main section with a small triangle and then it kind of
Yeah.
grows throughout? Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the existing with the overlay, that's what currently
Yeah.
2 triangles, yeah. And so we're just adding the third triangle. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the height of the garage portion of the addition? Or maybe if we looked at the side profile of that again. if
Yeah.
You've got that handy.
There you go. So I'm going to blow this up a little bit so that we can get right.
Okay, so it's,
So I was told that we need the height to the mid gable of the highest point, so that's 20, but the garage itself to here is 8, so it's probably about 6, maybe to the pitch, you mean?
yeah, I'm just trying to gauge the bulk of the garage.
I have my drawings here, the larger drawings, so I'm gonna look at those because that's a little more reliable than the small size. Right, so the top of, to the top of the pitch is about 14 feet.
So just eyeballing the top part of that drawing you're showing, it looks like it's the top of the pitch is about 3/4 up the front door. And then I'm going back to look at the picture just to get a sense of how big that's going to be.
Oh, to the photo of the house?
Yeah, the front of the house.
Right, so let's look at this side view. Right, so the new garage will be as tall as the existing one-story piece. It's not going any higher than that.
Okay.
But the addition upstairs will be higher.
And that will be the same, the height of the existing roof?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we
That
looked
on-
at, we looked at tucking it under the existing roof, but there were all kinds of issues because this is such a deep overhang, and you'd have, you know, this deep overhang on top of another roof, and there'd be a lot of stuff collecting in there. And that was a concern. So that's why we just decided to align the two roofs.
You could have cut the overhang back though a little bit without too much trouble, right?
Of the existing house?
Yeah.
Well, then it wouldn't match, here, I'll show you. It wouldn't match the other overhang though. You see?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and it also is complicated because the existing overhangs are bowed. Do you see how they,
Yeah, I see that.
yeah, they flare
It
out.
wasn't a decision not to go 2 stories all the way across. That would have been a real monster.
Yeah.
Can you show the a photo of the existing house again?
Sure. This one?
Yeah. So just so that can I say this back and tell me if I'm understanding this right? So, so essentially the portico and the downstairs area, those together become the 2-car garage.
Right.
Is that right? And then the second floor addition is essentially above what's currently the downstairs of the house. It's just over that portion. And then the part that's sort of the single story is where the portico is.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I understand.
Eric or John, any questions?
Oh, it's all clear to me.
John? You're muted.
Is the neighboring house there that's shown adjacent to your driveway, how far is that off its own setback from your property line? It looks pretty close.
I don't know. We don't have their survey.
Yeah. So, but your new structure, your proposed structure is not going to go beyond what seems to be the portico that stretches out?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And we didn't receive the note. Did we get all the notices, Aaron?
Yeah,
Okay.
got everything back.
Okay. No, I was just trying to look at it for density purposes, you know, but the angle of the photograph could be not telling the whole story either. But the photos do help. There you go. Yeah, there's enough distance there, yeah. I mean, the houses are pretty close in general, right, throughout the neighborhood like that? Similar spacing from what we saw with the overhead view?
I can show that view again. Here. Yeah, so these, yeah, see, there's that space between the house, there's that space. Yeah, we couldn't really put it on the other side because there's a 10-foot setback there.
Yeah,
And there's no driveway there either. So we just wanted to go minimize the lot coverage. But yeah, the houses are about, like this one's kind of close to that one. Those you can't see.
I mean, it doesn't look like getting egregiously closer to the other house. You know, the houses are fairly well spaced and proportionately so throughout that neighborhood and block.
We don't have a side yard setback issue here, do we?
No.
We
No,
just have a front yard setback issue.
That's right.
right, but we were looking
Okay.
at, we were looking at house density, that's all, just visual.
Yeah, so this one, the aerial view shows that we're going to come out to the blacktop right here. So we're not going to be closer to this house.
Yep. I don't have any other questions.
What's the width of the lot?
With this way,
Yeah.
it says 94
Okay.
4 feet.
Thanks. In one of the photos, there's a fence, the backyard looking east photo.
Yes.
Is that the Skanga fence or is that the neighbor's fence?
Hold on, let me go to this. This fence? That's the Skanga fence.
Okay. If
And
just
this fence, I'm not sure. Rose, do you know whose fence that is? The white fence?
so
She may
as
be-
a,
Yeah, white fence is the neighbors.
The white
Aside-
fence. is the neighbor's.
a side note about that stockade fence is that if you're replacing that, 6-foot fences are not allowed and 4 feet is the maximum.
We're not replacing it though.
Okay. So great. Then there's nothing for us to do there.
Eric, you were going to say something when I interrupted.
No.
Okay, it looks like the board is done with our questions. Why don't we open it up to the public? If anybody would like to speak, I know we've got Carol Kasparian and the Skangas are here. I'm not sure who else is here for this hearing or the next.
The Humbocks were here. They're the neighbors also.
Yes,
Okay.
Aaron,
Yes.
if everyone could state and spell their name and give their address, please.
Thank you. So I can't tell who wants to speak, so I will just call you out. And if you want to speak, then start speaking. So I've got the Humbocks. Would you like to speak?
Sure. We think the architect has done a very nice job here, and we support the application.
And if you could just give us we can see your name.
Yeah, John and Eva Humbach, Humbach, 9 Benedict Road, Cold Spring,
So you're the neighbor to the
north.
north. Okay. Thank you. Carol Kasparian, would you like to speak?
Yeah, we're here. Sorry. I don't
That's okay, thanks.
We have absolutely no problem with this and totally support the application.
Okay. And you're the
We're the people
house on
below.
Benedict or
Yep.
Kemble.
Oh, I'm
And-
sorry. Yes, 9 Kemble Avenue.
Okay.
Or 50. What am I saying?
What was the number on Kemble, please?
50 Kemble
Thank you.
Avenue.
Okay. And then we have the owners, the Skangas. Would you like to say anything?
They'll have to unmute if they
yeah,
want
there
I'm
we
to.
go.
sorry. I thought I had done that. I do apologize. I'm Rose Ganga. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you very much for your consideration of this project. I just want to add that we have been residences of Phillipstown and Cold Spring probably over 40 years, and we really love this community. And one of the main reasons why we've taken on this project is because of the convenience and just, living in the village, the convenience and just being able to be closer to our neighbors and all that. And, again, thank you for the consideration. And I'm hopeful that this will be accepted. And thank you to all the neighbors who found this to be favorable. We really do appreciate it. We look forward to meeting you in the near future.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who perhaps I'm missing?
No, we've covered the other folks. There's no one else who has not spoken.
Okay, so one final call for board questions before we close the public hearing, and then we can discuss. All right, would somebody like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it. All right, that's Donald.
Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
All right, the public hearing is closed. Thank you, everybody. So then the next step for us is to go through our 5 criteria for granting area variances. These are taken in balance. There's not a formula for deciding how these apply to a yes or no vote by any of the board members. So what we normally do is we go through these, and every board member has a chance to speak about the question, and then we will take a vote shortly after that. So just to restate, this is for a front yard variance, oops, that's the wrong one, of 12 feet for 11 Benedict Road to construct a 2-story addition. The bottom level is the garage, and the top level is bathroom, laundry room, and an office. This is the R1 district, and it is not in the historic district. So the first criterion, the benefit sought by the applicant can or cannot be achieved by any other feasible means. So I'll start that off. I would say that we saw alternative proposals, and I think they could all be called feasible but highly undesirable. So I think this is the, from my perspective, the best option and the most feasible way of achieving the benefit of the 2-car garage. Laura?
I agree with that. I have nothing to add.
Donald?
I would applaud the Skangas and their architect for showing us alternates that obviously did not work. And I think that they demonstrated that this is the only feasible way to put the project in.
John?
Agreed. The alternative examples discussed would actually become a detriment to the property in the sense of it would affect the other uses currently, including the pool.
Eric?
I agree with all the comments, and I have nothing more to add.
Thank you. The proposed variance will or will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, and a detriment to nearby properties will or will not be created by the granting of the area variance. Laura, would you like to start that one?
Sure. As it was presented, this is the proposed changes in, it's similar to other houses on the street that are split level with a garage. And the fact that it is largely within the existing footprint of at least roof structure minimizes the sort of the visual change. Looking at the other parts of this, it's also worth noting that neighbors are in favor, spoke in favor of the project, and we received nothing against the project from neighbors.
Donald?
I agree with the comments made. I don't know if I can add too much. I don't think it takes away from the character of the neighborhood. It's not a detriment.
John?
Agreed. It was pointed out that it'll be in conformity with much of the layout and the existing structures, homes on the block, as Laura had mentioned.
Eric?
I don't see any significant detriment.
I agree. My only concern was that the property to the south might feel a little bit pushed back behind the expanded garage, but I think that it generally is not out of character with the neighborhood.
I would have been, if they had done the second story all the way across, that's when I would have started to have issues because of that potential effect. But they didn't. They made the right choice and not doing a complete second floor. So
Okay, I will add that to your comments.
I agree with what Donald said. It didn't create an over-dense appearance of the new structure up against the southerly neighbor structure.
Okay. The requested variances, or the requested variance is or is not substantial. Donald, do you want to start with that?
I can't remember the exact number that would be. What is the number we're talking about?
It's 12,
25 foot front yard.
right, and a 12-foot variance.
12 foot at its worst point. It's a varying requirement because it's a curve. So it's 12 feet at its worst point, and it's 12 feet is substantial when looked at the code, but in this instance, since it is varying to much less, and it is in the front yard facing the street, I don't think it is, the effect is substantial. Numerically substantial, but not,
Got it.
in reality.
John?
Yeah, I agree with what Donald says, and it appears from the overhead view of the block itself and the other houses, it's not terribly out of character with the setbacks seen with those homes. They're continuing the line of their current residence, the front facial line. It just so happens to be a curve in the road that causes the greater, at the bend, the greater distance of 12 feet from the property line that it's going to have to need that variance at the corner of the southeast corner of the house.
Eric?
I don't see the request as substantial either numerically or in effect. Especially when you keep in mind that the existing building already extends into the setback part way.
I agree with Donald that numerically it is somewhat substantial, but, I mean, it's half of actually I agree with everybody. Everybody has good points here. It's half of the setback, but there's the curve which minimizes it. And the actual increase of the variance is not much because the existing building already extends into the front yard. Laura?
I agree, and particularly with your summary, Aaron.
Okay. The proposed variance will or will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. John?
I don't see it from the discussion we had. I just don't believe that from the diagrams shown that it'll be an overly dense, that'll be out of character with the neighborhood. And environmentally, there's going to be guttering noted, but I sort of forgot to ask about where the runoff would be deposited, and I imagine it would probably be in wells or something. Because you do have the drop off down behind. Well, you have the pool behind them. But,
Yeah.
and again, it was an impervious surface to begin with, as far as blacktop. But the question, it's now roof runoff. Running off the blacktop would go down to the street. Anyway, those are my comments. But we don't have any evidence as to where it's going to run off from the gutters.
Okay. Eric?
There may be a small increase in runoff because a patch of grass is being replaced by a roofed structure, but it's minimal, and if it's dealt with according to the code, it won't be any substantial effect. So I see no effect.
I agree with Eric. Laura?
I agree. Nothing to add.
And Donald?
I agree with what's been said.
Okay, finally, the alleged difficulty necessitating the variance was or was not self-created. Eric?
Yes, it was self-created.
I agree. Laura?
I agree.
Donald?
Yeah, self-created.
And John?
Yes, likewise, self-created. Yep.
Okay, great. So in balance, what it looks like is we've got a self-created necessity, not uncommon. Most of them are, almost all of them. We are looking at no adverse effect or impact on physical or environmental conditions. We have variance that is not substantial in effect, and we all agreed on that. And there was some discussion of whether it was substantial numerically, but generally not substantial. And we agreed that there was going to be no undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, no detriment to properties, and we did not hear any negative comments from neighbors about the project. We heard positive comments from 2 immediate neighbors to the house. And finally, this was, we agreed, the best way to put 2-car garage on the property. Anything else that anybody would like to note in the balancing part of this? All right, so if so,
I think, Eric, Aaron, you mentioned that it just runs the current face of the house, right? As far as front yard and the setback issue. It just, it's matching the line of the house, the front line.
I do not have that noted, but I will add it. So it continues the front wall of the house.
Yeah, it stays, consistent with the front wall of the house, and it's really the curve of the road that causes the greater portion of the variance requested.
Got that. So if somebody would like to make a motion to approve Resolution 5, 2019, granting a 12-foot variance for the construction of the garage at 11 Benedict Road, we can take a vote.
I move that the board approve the application.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of granting Resolution 05, 2019 for the application and the 12-foot variance, say aye.
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 Any nays? No. Okay, so the variance is approved. The next steps are for me to finish writing up the resolution, and I will get that to Jeff at Village Hall. And you, of course, need to wait for a building permit from him before you can start any work on that. Return the sign to Jeff, please, and that's it.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Okay, so at this point, Donald, I will turn the meeting over to you if you're ready, and I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
Everybody's good to go. All right, thank you. Thanks again, Donald, for your work on this, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. All right. At least for now, I'll see whether the video and audio works with, my internet connection. How do I sound?
You sound good.
It's better.
Hello?
Yeah,
All right.
sounds
All right.
good.
All right. So we're going to continue our deliberations on the application of Sam Bro, Garrison, New York, in order to permit construction of a single-family dwelling on a substandard lot, 21 Parsons Street in the village of Cold Spring. We have our board members, John Martin, Eric Worth, Laura Bozzi, and we have our village attorney, John Hurst, who is occupying the screen right now. So, John, I think you're probably on vacation, and we appreciate your dedication to this this cause.
No problem. Anytime.
So the first thing we should probably do is hit the minutes from May 20. I've got to find.
August 20, right?
Yep.
Is it August 20th?
Yep.
So let's go through those and then we'll just see where we are on it.
I have a question about the bulleted list on the first page, item number 4. The space between the proposed building and the adjacent property on Pine Street is important and historically relevant. That was one of the assertions by the applicant, but this list is supposed to represent the board's discussion. So, but it appears to, the way it's written now, it appears to be a point that is endorsed by the board.
That's right. That statement is the belief of the applicant, as Eric says, not necessarily the belief of the board. I guess we could say the applicant states that the space between the proposed building and the adjacent property.
That's
Yeah.
right. That does it. Yeah, because you were just recounting the history of maybe the arguments made. You were going through the booklet that they had.
Right. We were going through the high points of the booklet. Maybe that's how. Maybe that's what. Well, just keep going like this. So the potential.
Yeah, these are basically, you were going through the book. You were going through their
Yeah.
we identify it. It was the presentation for variances of 21 Parsonage. It was the initial, hearing discussion.
Well, yeah, and I think I was making some comments, and Michael's picking up some of those comments. I just think we have to be clear about who's saying what. So site plan includes two on-site parking spaces. That's a matter of fact. Main ZBA considerations are a lot related. Yes. Well, I think that what you're trying to say is a lot size related.
There's one up above. The lot is not atypical in the village. If we want that to be a statement of fact, I think we have to explain what that means. Right? If the lot is not atypical in the village because there are a number of other lots under some square footage or something. It's just a little, I think it's a little general.
The applicant is not atypical in the village because he documents a substantial portion, a substantial number of lots in the village, smaller than those required by the zoning code. Inartfully put, but
Yeah, the question is Michael picking this up? Mike, are you able to hear all of Donald's words there? Donald, you're going in and out again on occasion.
I hear him, but I don't have my minutes in front of me
I'll
to.
turn my.
But as you guys were saying, this was the part of the meeting where Donald was hitting the high points of the presentation booklet, and I was just noting the items that were discussed. And as to Eric's point of that it's currently written, it appears that the ZBA endorses that point about the space between the houses. Not my intent in writing the minutes, and that could be reworded to indicate that it was just a point in the presentation booklet, or leading up to that list of bullet points. It could be, say, Donald McDonald reviewed the salient points from the applicant's initial presentation that included, and then have the list there. So it's said right out front that everything following is.
I don't think that is a solution because some of the points are specifically the ZBA. For example, 95% of all applications are self-created. That was something I believe that the ZBA said. And it's not something that the applicant would have brought out.
Then you may just want to, at each point that is problematic, just add a note that it's the applicant's contention that.
The only one that strikes me that way is the one I mentioned, number 4 in the list. I think the others read accurately. They can be correctly understood the way they're written now.
I mean, when something is not atypical, it sounds like it'd be more in line with the homes or the properties or the sizes of the properties in the village. And I'm not sure if that was this particular lot as compared to the other ones that are substandard was consistent in size with all those other lots. It seemed to be definitely on the lesser side of having square footage. There weren't many lots that were in the vicinity of 3,300 square feet that I saw.
I'm gonna go away for a second. I just printed out a copy of these.
I know there's a lot of substandard properties and that was, well documented by the applicant.
All right, I got a printed copy of these now. So property is in the R1 zone, well, HCRB has indicated support of the application, but applicant hasn't appeared before them yet. The space between the proposed, the applicant, I'm gonna make notes, and then so I'm gonna say on number 4, the applicant the applicant asserts the space between the proposed building and the adjacent property on Pine Street is important and historically relevant. And then the next one, the lot is not atypical for the village. The applicant asserts the lot is not atypical in the village. Dash, there are many lots at or larger. There are many lots in the village not conforming with the code as to size.
That's accurate. As to minimum size.
Yeah. Minimum size. We can also say the applicant has documented this, has provided extensive documentation on this point. Submitted. This point. Okay, site plan includes 2 on-site parking spaces. That's a fact. Main ZBA considerations are lot related. Main ZBA considerations are main ZBA considerations are the small size of the lot. I mean, really, I think that's what, in essence, he's saying, and it's a matter of fact.
You know, if I could bring the board's attention to the presentation booklet that they had, like on pages to the rear, it does have a listing of the lots and their square footage, and it's noting that a certain,
That's why I said the provide.
right. Okay, I'm not.
That's
I won't-
why I said that he provided a lot of documentation.
Okay.
I would propose taking out main ZBA considerations are a lot related. I don't know why we even need that in the minutes. You know, there are a number of people, lots of different considerations we have.
I can't say, let me just say this, you know, in looking through, if I can very quickly, just to get this point past. In the presentation booklet in the back, he averages out a lot of the lots on average size and square footage. And, you know, some of them do, where he has these lots listed as non-conforming R1 lots equal to or less than 3,360 square feet. He numbers them, and the average square footage of those lots were 2,403 square feet. So which would be smaller size. I think the distinction a little bit that we're drawing here is many of those lots were developed pre-code. And, you know, certainly there are many lots like that in the village that were constructed back in the 1800s when the workers were here, that were very close to each other. But he has it all laid out here in the back. And there's a lot of pages with a number of lots that are averaging out at 2,400 square feet, 2,700 square feet. So just to make the board aware of that, that's all. So that we don't overlook the evidence. And I'm sort of correcting myself as when I was making a statement that it may or may not be atypical. I think he's pointed out, I think the distinction was more so postcode and size of the lots and those being developed. That's really what we were looking at the time. All right, I've got nothing else to say. I don't want to delay this further.
All right. Well, main ZBA considerations are a lot related. I mean, I think.
Given that this
I'm not
is
sure why that's in there, and I'm not sure why we need it.
Yeah, given that this is for an area variance, by definition, it's lot related or lot size related.
Well, maybe we could say that. As this application is an area, has a number of area variances requested, the ZBA considerations will inevitably be lot size related.
Okay, but isn't that whole statement redundant?
Yes. Well, you're a good wordsmith. Tell me what I should write.
Well, why do we have to say anything since this is already under the heading of area variances?
Right. All right, so we'll take it out. We'll just take it out.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's good that we thought about it and tried to rework it, but I think, Eric's probably got a good point there.
So Eric, ultimately you're saying take it out?
Yes, well, as far as I can see, unless there's a technical reason to have that in there, but it just seems to me.
No.
Uh,
All right, we're taking that out. The potential impact that the approval of the application may have on precedents is to be considered, though it is not the sole determinant. Okay. I think both ZBA and applicant are saying that, so we could just leave it in the minutes as is. ZBA charge is to balance the benefit to the applicant against any detriment to the community. Again, that's basically a matter of fact. We both say it. 95% of all applications are self-created. Where did that come from? Is that from us?
It must have been, but I don't know.
Someone on the board said that.
Yes. I don't know about the 95 number. That seems, I don't know how accurate that is, but.
We could say most happy.
Most, instead of 95, we'll say most. Okay, the application's area variance is substantial. The fact that other non-conforming lots exist in the village doesn't mean a variance should automatically be granted.
Well, I don't know. Is that a statement or, I'm not sure what that is.
That was something that Donald said.
Well, it's not false. The second sentence is kind of, it goes without saying, but it's not incorrect.
Yeah, well, I'm not incorrect.
Well, we could say the board noted the area variances requested are substantial. The board,
I don't think that we said that until we got into the discussion of the criteria.
Right.
It's just that substantial, I don't remember this specific part of the discussion, but I do think that the board as a whole, when we discussed that, it was during reviewing the criteria.
I think that well, okay, yeah, that's right. And it says here, the board discussed the 5 criteria. So that would be under that heading. I don't think that the applicant says in his record that just because they're not conforming lots existing in the village doesn't mean a variance should automatically be granted for his project. Unless he was like a super applicant arguing against his own cause. So I think that I would take that out. That's already handled down below. That statement is already handled when as Laura says, we dealt with that when we were talking about 5 criteria.
Yeah, so take out that whole point.
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Yeah, Michael, I don't remember that was in the synopsis of the record of the booklet.
As you read through the booklet and summarized, the board members also took the conversation in different directions.
Right.
So
that's
that,
probably-
those bullets are not a strict list, but they reflect the things that you guys were saying.
Right, okay. All
That's
right.
probably, that's true.
I don't make this stuff up.
No, Mike, no way. No, I think, but what do you want to do? What do we do with it? Is there anything that the board suggests?
Well, I think both these last 2 points, really, they're okay, but we should just say in subsequent discussion, and then have the last 2 bullet points. The board noted that the area variance is requested. The board noted that a number of the area variances requested are substantial. The board noted the fact that other non-conforming lots exist in the village doesn't mean a variance should automatically be granted.
That makes sense to me to pull it out into a separate list.
Discussion.
I'm fine with that.
Good.
All right, I'm just writing it down.
Thanks.
The application area. Many of the, all right. The fact that the lot is and has been generally considered to be non-buildable should be taken into consideration as to neighborhood impact. Purchase of neighboring properties in the past may have been based upon presumption that the lot would remain undeveloped, though variances are always a possibility. Again, I would just say in subsequent discussion, the board noted,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
discussed those issues.
agreed.
Board discussed that. Board discussed that the fact that the lot is and has been generally considered to be non-buildable should be taken into consideration as to neighborhood impact. Or maybe said should, we could say could be taken into consideration as neighborhood impact.
That's right.
Because some board member might not
Agreed.
agree. So I would say it could be. Okay. And then purchase of neighboring properties in the past may have been based upon the presumption that the lot would remain undeveloped. I would leave that. I think that's a good statement right there. Right, German. Okay. All right. So, all right, can we have somebody make a motion that we approve the minutes as we have revised them?
I'll make that motion.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, we're done with the minutes. So now, we asked our village attorney, Mr. First, to begin to craft a balancing test with the 5 factors, for and against, and kind of noting some of the and incorporating the comments and discussions we had that evening. And John did that and has sent it to us. And I don't know, John, would you be opposed of just walking us through what you've done? And I think that might help us spur some more discussion about how we would feel about this. Or is that, what do you think? You want me to go?
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I can go through the memo briefly, or if you'd rather kind of go through the memo and highlight it. Either way, I wouldn't go through the whole memo, but certainly if you want to highlight some points and kind of what I did. just remember that, you know, some of it's attorney-client privilege.
I was about to say that. How does the board consider this document before we start? If we start talking about some of it, we open it all, I think.
Right.
And again, it's just really the advice of counsel and what counsel heard and what he just virtually just regurgitated back to us with
Right.
some bullet points. So
Yeah, it's a summary of our own discussion of the 5 points. So I don't see why we would need to review it separately. We can have we can repeat our discussion or undertake it more formally.
Yeah, because I mean, my memo pretty much summarized your discussion, and then I added in my legal points
right.
here and there.
that's right. So I think us discussing what we had discussed openly, that's obviously, not attorney-client privilege, but I think some of the points made by counsel just to give us some ideas of how to look at some of these issues might be advice of counsel. And
Correct. So Donald, I would recommend just kind of restarting the conversation that you guys had towards the end of the meeting, towards the end of the workshop meeting.
All right.
And if you don't mind me saying, should we reference at the start of this to the corrected variances that are being sought, so that we can set that
Yeah.
record straight, cross-compare what we discussed before and how that may or may not be an issue anymore?
All right, well, that's good. That's a good, what I did, when I sent everybody today, I tried to clean up the issue that makes it difficult in this virus Zoom world is that we're trying to take a file from the village and distribute it out in homes in the village. And I spent a good amount of time down at the village offices putting together, here's the documents from the applicant, here are the letters that came in, here's these, and kind of put them in different groups, and then get them copied and get them scanned and sent out to everybody. And what happens is things get jumbled up, and that's kind of what happened. And we missed a couple of pages. And so I was trying to today to kind of, and I got an email from Sam Bro, and he was naturally very concerned, and I understand his concern perfectly. And it wasn't like we weren't concerned too. I've been, the main thing after last week's hearing was that we were going to be sure that we had what the variances were, in nth detail for the next hearing. So we cleaned that up today. Today I sent Sam's 21 Parsons Street zoning requirements. It was revised, on his in that February meeting, and it clearly shows all the variances he is asking for.
So why don't we go through
Except
that?
I just realized.
Why don't we go through each one, Donald, and just.
No, I just realized this thing that I got it's not all the variances because I'm sorry. Because this is still showing an off-street parking space requested, and that's not the application.
Well, that was I think he originally requested to only have one off-street parking space.
John, all right, John, I think I copied you on this. He revised his site plan in the middle of the hearing.
Right.
And he put 2 parking spaces on the property so that he did not have any parking issues, okay? And
correct. But I think he's still open. I think he's still open to to one spot or even no spots, if the board's so inclined. So I think
You're jumping ahead. What I want to do is I don't want to be accused by anybody of us not understanding exactly what the variances are that he's asking for. I just want to get this cleaned up because what I have here, the one I did and sent out, I know is it's right up the site plan, and it's exactly what his variances are that are required on the project. I'm swimming in paper on this thing. The variances are this. Lot area variance. We're required 7,500 square feet. He's only got 3,360 square feet. He needs a variance of 4,140 square feet for the lot size. The lot width required 75, existing 48. He needs 27 feet variance. Lot depth, 75 required, 70 existing. He needs a 5-foot variance. Shape, you've got to be able to put a 50-foot by 50-foot square in the lot. The lot's only 48 feet wide. So the biggest square you can get in there is 48 by 50. So he needs a 2-foot variance for that 48 feet. His lot coverage, there's no issues. Setbacks, he moved the building, and the new site plan that I sent out that we got, the village we had 2 copies. One is old and one new. The new one with showing the 2 parking spaces. He also moved the building slightly, and the new computations are the front yard. The front of the building is 5.16 feet from the street, from the property line. He needs a 19.84 foot front yard variance. Side yard, east side yard's fine. He's got 31 feet existing. He only needs 10, no big deal. West side, he's got 7.5 feet. He needs 10, so he needs 2.5 foot variance. Why does he need that? Because small lots provisions of 134-18E do not apply, as the lot was not under separate ownership in 1967. Rear yard, he needs 20 feet. He's got 45.27. He's clear. Height, no issues. Parking, he has no parking there now. He's proposing to put 2 off-street parking spaces on the lot. So there is no parking issue. So those are the variances. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 area variances for the lot area, size, and shape. And he has 2 a front yard setback and a side yard setback. Those are the variants he's requesting. And I sent everybody a copy of the, I'm gonna put my video back on. I sent everybody this markup, and it's an accurate description of what's going on here. I also sent the applicant had in his revised proposal on February 11th, 2020, he had given us a series of, he cataloged the substandard lots on Constitution Drive and on White Hill Place. And by substandard lots, what he's saying is that they're less than 7,500 square feet. And critically, they were all built on after the zoning code was enacted in 1967. Important point. Since he's using these, my thought was, well, okay, how big is this lot? Because that matters. His point is well taken about them being built on after 1967, but it would be, the lot areas. I got the lot areas, all parcel maps. I noted, and I sent you my markup, and I sent this to the applicant as well. And the first one, you know, for some reason, it shouldn't be on the list because it's 10,000 square feet. It's more than the 7,500. But all the others, they are, you can see the square footages, they're less than 7,000 square feet. And then I gave you the averages. And I think for me, there are two main points to draw off this. One is that, yes, there were a number of properties that had existing lots that were less than 7,500 square feet, unbuilt on after 1967, and then they were built on. So that's a very important point that the applicant is making. I think the other salient point is, well, how big were those lots? And I think as you can see from the square footages, all the lots were, yes, they were less than 7,500 square feet, but they were substantially more area than the applicant's lot, which, you know, my thought was when I looked at this, if his lot was 6,000 square feet, you know, high 5,000s, we would be probably having a different conversation on his project, or we could be. So that's what I sent out to the board today, and we should, you know, crank into our deliberations. All right, so where we left off was, well, I'll just stumble into it. Where we left off was we were discussing, we all kind of agreed that it seemed if that number one, we did not buy into the historic claims that the historic relationship between the existing barn and the house on Pine Street, that once you renovated this building into a house, that we felt that it did not, the historic nature of the project went away. And from myself, I can say flatly, I just don't buy that contention. I don't buy what the HDRB says in terms of in their referral. I just, when I look at what making it into a dwelling and knocking it, basically demolishing what's there, and, you know, see some beams out of it and then rebuilding it into a brand new house. To me, it loses the historic, whatever considerations are there for that. And the other issue that I had was that there is no way that I could, in my mind, see how you could have the 2 parking spaces on the lot where they were and not say that this would not be a big detriment to the neighbor, and then I think detriment to the neighborhood. So we then, for me, it was kind of like trying to put on a new suit. How do I feel about this project without 2 parking spaces and the house where it is? And we had all discussion about that, you know, how we felt about that. I think we felt that without the parking, without the cars on the lot, it was something that we could see could be viable and not be a fatal detriment to the neighbor on Pine nor the neighborhood. My subsequent thinking, as I've reread, I reread the planning board's recommendation, and the planning board beat the drum very hard on not having about granting variances for parking. The more I thought about it, the more I thought that in my mind, granting variances to approve the lot and all its area deficiencies and granting variances for no parking was a bridge too far for me. That I don't believe that scenario is in character with the village, and I honestly believe that it takes the code and it just throws the code in the trash basket. And I could see ways that you could explore siting the house at a different place, accommodating some cars. I don't know if it would work, but I think this, for me, this application, when you start off by saying we have to have the house where it is, and then, we'll let the neighbors deal with the cars, I just can't go there. And since I don't think that once you start making this into a house, you've got an historic property anymore. I don't think that moving the house or thinking about moving the house or doing something different would be off the table. Would it work? Would a board approve that? I don't know. But I think that us bending over backwards to grant every variance in the book, it's a bridge too far that I can see to go. And I think the code, if we keep saying, we say, well, if we ignore this big part of the code about have parking on your site, if we ignore that big one, then this can kind of work. But we just made a big, huge ignore. And I want, I just don't feel that you can just keep doing that. It gets into, in the balancing act, what I'm saying is the substantial portion of it is going to weigh it weighs very, very heavily for me. So that's how I come down on this thing. Just jump in the pool and say, that's where I come. Everybody's dumbfounded?
No, not necessarily. Any other comments?
Laura, what do you, you always have a good way to lead things.
Thanks. I don't feel like my position or my perspective on it has changed too much, or has changed since our last meeting. I think that both the area variance and individually, and the sum of all of the variances together is substantial, very, very substantial, and I think tips too far in what's granted for a single application, and I think that is what adds to that is the perspective of neighbors that feeling like that oppose the application, and also the sort of recognition by many people, by the neighbors, that it was a lot that was not buildable, or without these significant variances, and that sort of decisions were made in the neighborhood, or that there was a strong understanding of that within the neighborhood. But I'll just say, I mean, I think for me, it's just the amount it's most significantly the balancing question of whether the requested variance is substantial, and that's the one that weighs most heavily for me.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to just say that since the last meeting, my thinking has evolved mostly in the way that I've thought about the the exceptional way that this application has come about. And I talked about that a little bit last time, but I just, I find this even more of a factor that weighs against the application, the extraordinary way that this application came about. The reason that a ZBA exists is to provide relief to a homeowner who is caught by some unreasonable or in some aspect of the zoning code that is causing a difficulty. And the ZBA exists to provide case-by-case relief with because no code can be perfect. No code can apply to every situation correctly all the time. But now if we look at the way, and that makes sense in the classic kind of application where someone has lived in a home, circumstances change, they need to modify their home in a way to serve them. But this application is on a different footing. Here we have somebody who has bought a property that they knew did not conform and immediately set about to pursue a project that violates the code under 6 or 7 headings. That is not like what is needed there is not relief. This is not a situation of providing relief to somebody who is caught in a bind. This is somebody who chose to do something that in full consciousness before even purchasing the property, who had or should have had full consciousness that the code did not permit the envisioned project. So this really goes beyond, like, to grant this application to me would put the ZBA going beyond the function of providing relief. It would be facilitating a kind of flouting of the code. So that's all. I'm curious if other board members are persuaded by that.
John
Well,
Martin?
I look at the project as follows. I mean, the applicant in one of his recent comments to the board is like, we talked about the use of the property and how it might change, and the applicant came back appropriately and said, well, it's zoned residential, so the use that hasn't changed. But then you have to, and that's correct. And then you look at the variables that are involved here. The biggest one is that if it's residential, what did the code of 1967 intend? Well, it looked at 75 square foot properties, probably so that neighbors could live, sort of peacefully or have a better quality of life. And it doesn't mean it had to be exactly 7,500 square feet. You can see Constitution Drive, as you point out, in these post-1967 code developments of structures on what were then vacant properties. It's about 5,800 square feet. But that's a substantial difference. So 5,800 square feet compared to this would be almost a 2,500 foot difference in size. And again, we're dealing with residential lots, and the idea is quality of life, and we're trying to squeegee in, maybe 2 cars parked on the property, but then maybe not because they come too close to the property. I would say if we all look at the booklet that was handed out by the applicant, which was an extraordinary production of putting this together, and I've got to say that tremendous amount of work and exacting detail went into it. But pages 79 and 80, which show the property and the barn in relation to the main house of which it was subdivided from, it's pretty close. It's pretty compact. And the neighbors adjacent came out and, said that this would affect their quality of life. And of course, you go into the village and all these houses are built right on top of each other. There's virtually no separation between some of the homes. But they bought into that. People bought into what they saw, and not only that, those structures were developed next to each other prior to 1967, and that was back in a time where there wasn't that much money. People lived close together for whatever reason. It was like a community. It's almost like New York City. People move out to the suburbs now, maybe to have a little bit more space. What we have here is a lot size that is, less than half of the 7,500 square foot, so-called in quotes, minimum lot size. And so I think from what we discussed with regards to trying to figure out where the wiggle room is for parking spaces, and the northerly neighbor saying, well, I don't want it too close to my house, or don't move it back, don't set it back further to reduce the variances because it'll be closer to my house. But then the house of which it was partitioned from has the same issue of the parking spaces right next to it. I mean, it's one of these things where it's like you're trying to shoehorn a lot in, and a lot of ideas and a lot of hopes. It's a tough situation. There's no doubt about it, but I think the code speaks in part with regards to lot sizes and minimums. I think that this doesn't even get to an area where you consider variances, although we are going to consider them, but I think it's a difficult ask is what I'm saying. And I think the quality of life for both neighboring properties will be largely impacted more than the benefit that would be achieved to the owner, even though the owner had put substantial investment into this. But there is a sense, as I said before, that there's a buying of property is as is, and to the risk of the buyer. And where the price gets higher and higher, there's more and more due diligence expected. It's like any investment, and it's sort of a gamble in part. And it's a difficult thing to maybe look at this and say these variances, maybe we can figure this out, maybe we can work it out, but we've looked at this many ways over, and the board has been very, very concerned and put a lot of effort in and time to try to figure out and see alternatives and to listen to the applicant. But I think it really goes against the code on many aspects, obviously by the degree of variances sought, but most particularly the total lot size and the narrowness of the lot. Now, there are many other lots just as narrow, but again, none of them really were developed with that kind of lot size in mind post 1967. And the applicant makes a very good point. Well, this is one of the few lots left. This is one of the few lots left, and so what's the harm? This won't really set a precedent coming down the road. There won't be other things like this. So maybe we should just, perhaps, I don't want to use the word cave in, but sort of look askance from the code and, all its basic requirements. And so there are a lot of considerations here. I think in the end, it's, as I think many of the board members said, it's too big of an ask, in my opinion. And I look, as I do so, I look at pages 79 and 80, and I look how close the building is and the barn is to the main building. All this came about, by the way, by an improper subdivision, by an exercise by a private landowner saying, I'm subdividing my property, seeking no approvals of that, just saying, I just feel like dividing it up. And back in the day, the county land records was simply accepting private divisions of property lots. And then issues started arising, and then the county saw that and has, stopped accepting private subdivisions without formal approval from the village or any municipality, because it just runs into difficulties for the land records to accept these subdivisions in the first place, that are done on a private level. I mean, just that kind of a subdivision alone should have raised questions. And certainly there was prior litigation over this. So there are a few, if you did a lot of due diligence, there are a few warnings that were out there. It's just a big ask. That's my opinion. I can't think of anything else at the moment. I don't want to waste everybody else's time, but maybe we go through the criteria, or maybe we start with one. I don't know. That's my roundup of thoughts.
All right. Why don't we go through the criteria?
Do we start with a particular variance request?
Well, I would say, yeah, we would start with the lot size, because that, if you don't grant the first one on the list, which is granting a variance to allow a building to be put on a 3,360 square foot lot where 7,500 square foot is required. If you don't grant that variance, then the other variances, they're what do they call it? Moot. I mean, you don't even get to them. I guess we would, but John, what you were suggesting the same thing, right? That the lot area would be the first variance that we should talk about.
Yeah, I would focus on the lot area, because without that, then all the others are moot. And I don't think there's
Right.
even a need to go through the other ones.
Right. So, I would say that if you look at the lot, if you look at that variance, will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood, or whether a detriment will be created to nearby properties by granting the area variance? So this is the area variance to allow a single-family residence to be built on a 3,360 square foot lot where 7,500 square feet is required. So if you look at number one, will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood? Well, certainly the neighbors all said that they felt that an undesirable change in the character of their neighborhood would happen, and it would be a detriment to nearby properties. I think we've documented that when you try to meet the code and put two cars on a lot, as the applicant has on his application, when you do that, you are creating a severe detriment to nearby property. And I think by implication, it's an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. In other words, what I'm saying is, if the lot is only 3,000 feet, small as it is, it's very difficult to accommodate the things that the zoning code asks the applicant to accommodate, and still make that lot not affect other properties.
Donald, this criterion that you're discussing, you called it the first criterion, but it's not one that we usually discuss first.
Oh, I was just going through the list at how,
Well, Donald, why don't we just make, what?
John had done it in his memo.
Okay.
Yeah, I just did, that's how it's listed in the statute. I mean,
I
you
thought,
might,
oh, okay, my mistake then. I thought whether whether there were other means feasible was usually number one.
I mean, usually I think that's number 2 or 3 in the statute, but I mean, I think this is number 1 because I think this is usually one of the bigger ones for discussion. And I think that's why it's number 1 in the statute.
Okay, forget what I said then, never mind.
I mean, you guys can go through it. If you want to go through it your traditional order, that's fine, that you're more comfortable with. Either way, as long as you go through all 5 of them.
No, let's just keep going the way we are. We'll carry on with what Donald has been saying.
So I'm just making the point that the site plan the site plan that we have in front of us, not a different site plan. The site plan that we're being asked to consider tonight, to me demonstrates why this lot area variance will create an unresolved change in the character of the neighborhood, and a detriment will be created to nearby properties. If for no other reason than the lot is so small, it can't, on this site plan, accommodate the cars that are required by the code and not be a detriment to nearby properties.
Well, I agree with what Donald said, and that there would be substantial detriment to the neighbors and harm to the character of the community. When you consider the addition of 2-car driveway, patio, house, residential house with comings and goings and lights and noises. And so, and I think one further point that he didn't mention, one further type of harm is the loss, what to me is the loss of the historic integrity of this orphan lot. And as I said in the other meeting, I believe I read these orphan lots as having a historical, they are a legible piece of history reflecting the ad hoc development. And they even provide a practical benefit to this day of just breaking up monotony in streetscape, providing visual breathing space, providing green space. Density is not the answer for every square inch, and orphan lots are not a problem that requires solution necessarily. So to grant the application would be to lose that historic feature of this particular lot. And that's, to me, that counts as a harm to the character of the community.
I agree with what's been said, particularly Donald's point about the kind of bulk of the building has an impact on neighbors, particularly the next door neighbor, and that the change into an occupied dwelling brings with it additional sort of stresses to the street. I do think it's worth noting that there is there's an aesthetic argument here that I don't think we have to weigh in on, of whether it's a beautifully the new structure could be considered a beautiful new structure, and I think that people feel both people are on both sides of that, of whether they prefer the old barn or the new, more contemporary structure. And I think that the potential impacts that we've listed here outweigh if there that potential benefit that some people see.
Okay.
Yeah, Donald, I agree with all the points made. Again, since we're talking right now about the area variance, I look at, again, back at the presentation booklet in the back listing, all accessory structures. And I'm looking at primarily for the grid of, as of lot sizes. And I look around and, on Academy Street and a few other streets, there are smaller lots, and, but these lots pre-existed 1967. And again, the code came into effect really to try to, while variances can be granted, certain, it was trying to develop a certain type of development that people could have a little bit of faith in or expectation in regarding, what was going to happen in their community and whether what would be done would be fitting within the community. And, within Parsonage Street right there on that block, while right across from that on the corner of what would be Pine Street and Parsonage, you have two very small lots. Again, they pre-existed, but the majority of other lots are, quite sizable in relation. And so developing this lot at this small size would be out of character of that immediate area, particularly post 1967 intent of development. And with all the difficulties that we mentioned would be presented, again, with regards to, comings and goings, lights, noises, people living there. It's a big ask for a small lot, and and for the number of variances sought. So I think the lot size alone, because of the way we've been trying to, toggle the building around in our minds and try to get a reduced number of variances and cars on and off the property, it's that kind of an ask where it's just seemingly extremely difficult. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Well, I think that we did, when you look at the record of developed lots after 1967, they are less than there were a number that were less than 7,500 square feet, but they were at the 5,000, 6,000 square foot range. And that might be something, that's something much closer to, much less substantial, a variance required, and conversely, a much more square footage of lot area to create buffers between you and the neighbors and the neighborhood. And I think, yes, there are lots, 3,000, there are lots in the village that are 3,000 square feet. There are lots that are smaller than that, but I have not seen anything in the record that tells me about that small that were developed after 1967. And the ones that I know of or understand about, there was existing situation that people moved into. They, as Laura says, this was not a situation that was imposed on people. People elected to live with their neighbor, 1 foot from them. That they moved in, they made that choice. Fine, no problem. But this here, we would be saying to this community, which had some knowledge of the code and was aware that variances could be asked for, but they, I think, put faith in the substantiality aspect of the ask would be. And I think that imposing this kind of solution on as a now a new situation that they have to live with, that makes this way more substantial and way more detrimental than it would be in another situation that somebody bought into as an existing situation. So, want to go to the next one?
Sure.
Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicants to pursue other than the area variance. The applicant could use their property, the barn as it is, that certainly is not a, from what we can tell, you know, something would be economical or something that a person would want to do. I don't know that they have any alternative other than to ask for variances if the goal is to make a single family residence. We talked last week about, yes, sometimes applicants try to purchase land to make their lot bigger, but in this case, they can't do that for two reasons. Number one, well, one reason, even if a neighbor wanted to sell them land, the neighbors don't have enough extra land to be able to sell them to, without their lots becoming deficit in terms of lot area. So that's not an option. The applicant could shift the house. Well, no, now we're talking about lot size. So the applicant has no choice but to, it seems to me, to ask for a variance for the lot size. I think that's basically, what do they call that? A matter of fact on its face. I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the
No
option,
comment. I assume everybody is agree with that.
yeah, the options of the
All right,
applicant.
let's go to what?
I was just going to say the options of the
No,
applicant
you go.
quite a lot.
You broke up on me, John. You're saying the option of the applicant would have been not by the lot?
The options of the applicant with, alternative with regards to this element, this variance of lot, area variance for
Right.
the lot size are highly curtailed by the lot size alone. And without running into other variances, as you indicated. And it doesn't, even moving the house around, which is a very small lot, and it was discussed at the hearing and comments made by the immediate neighbors that dropping the house further back would not sit well with the neighbors to the north, because the building would then be closer to them as opposed to more towards the street and to the rear of the kitchen of the what was the original primary. So the limitations really with regards to what other alternatives there are, again, are incredibly circumscribed by the actual size of the lot, and most and other alternatives considered, like I said, did not seem to sit well with the neighbors who would be most affected, the immediate neighbors. That's it.
Eric, any comments?
No, nothing.
Remember, we're talking about one variance. We're talking, at this point, all we're considering is lot area variance. That's the variance we're considering. So we're talking about,
Square footage.
right, is there some method other than what the applicant is asking for to achieve their goals?
No, none.
Right,
I agree with that.
okay. All right, let's get on to the next one. Whether the requested variance is substantial. On its face, we know that the request is substantial. Code requires 7,500. The lot's only 3,360. So it's less than half the size it's supposed to be. I think that you could say that in the world of substantial, it's big time substantial. I mean, this isn't, even 1,000 square feet off 7,500 could be considered getting to be substantial. This is a huge ask, and I think that the discussion we've had and the wrestling we've had is all related to how small the lot is in relation to what the applicant, a normal homeowner, and the zoning code is asking us, telling us has to be on that lot. That the substantial lease, that it's small enough that the issues, the problems with developing it demonstrate how substantial the variance would have to be to allow development.
Donald, I agree. I just would say that, as you mentioned, it is substantial at times is not so much the numerical value, but it has to be considered also in the detrimental effects because of the size of the variance. And I think that's been sort of talked about, that the variance would be substantial because even trying to move the house anywhere around on the property, it would have substantial detriments, to the neighbors and just to the community, just surely for the lot size and trying to turn it into a residential lot. With all the residential ongoings that take place with families on their properties, and due to the restricted size of it, the variance is substantial, and because of its impact, and it can't even eliminate the impacts really. If granted the variances, I don't think that the impacts would necessarily go away.
Laura?
I agree. I think that the requested variance is substantial in size, that it's the lot is about half the size that it should be according to the code, and also in impact as John discussed.
Eric?
I agree. The request is substantial numerically, but more importantly in effect.
Okay. All right.
It's 10 o'clock.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Um, um, I- The way I look at this, and I said it from the start, if you grant the lot area variance, this proposed variance to allow a 3,300 square foot lot to be a, you know, a residential lot, and you put on that lot issues, the automobiles that you need to satisfy that portion of the code, you have instantly created an adverse effect and impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighbor, and at least the neighbor. And right there, to me, that is a fatal issue right there with the application as drawn. You could have a debate about whether that, you know, having that would affect environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district. You could have a debate about that, but the immediate local effects of it will be, for granting that a lot that size, the immediate local effects will be negative. And they would be fatally negative to the neighbor.
I'll jump in. I think that this also creates an adverse effect, but I think for me it's less about vehicles than about that it was essentially an open lot currently, without use, and very little paved surface or lights or sort of heat producing structures. And so I think that there is an environmental impact of having an occupied home with more surface covered. I don't think that it is, as we had discussed, I think the last time Eric mentioned that some of in our discussion, some of these balancing factors were more significant than others. This one isn't as significant to me, but I do see a negative impact.
Well, I think it'll increase the density of the structures, which would have a bit of an environmental impact, where there's more airflow right now. And when I say density, because the lot is so narrow and the house will take up a fair sum of the small lot. And again, while there are other situations, certainly throughout the village, where houses are right on top of each other, it was, as discussed earlier, people who would buy homes like that, buy them knowing what they're getting. And again, most of those properties were developed pre-code 1967. So when you're putting in a structure like this, not so much was discussed with regards to runoff or anything. I'm sure it have been captured with appropriate gutters and or drain wells, but the density to me is the biggest environmental drawback, in sort of affecting the character of the neighborhood, where that lot is really too small to be developed with a residential home.
I agree with all the comments. I think there is physical and environmental detriment. This is not the most severe criterion weighing against the application, but it does weigh against it to some degree. Keep in mind all the little intrusions that come along with a residence. Just imagine an air conditioner, to take one thing that we take for granted and don't notice, but you put an air conditioner down running all summer long, and noise is created that impinges on the neighbors, and that is definitely an environmental detriment. And that's why zoning codes call for larger lots, so that those harms are spread out and diluted by space.
I agree with Eric's point to add, you would have increased sounds and light and the like, which could be viewed as an environmental impact in a residential area, which are typical of a residential area, but not necessarily, when you're on a small lot and trying to squeeze a house in, between two other neighbors who've talked about the impact that they would experience from, such development, intent or proposed development.
Okay. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Well, simply by buying the lot, you've self-created the applicant's problem. As as we've noted, most of these are self-created because the applicant, bought into the situation that they could see to begin with. This one is no different. The small size of the lot it's obvious to look at it. It's obvious on the site plan, and there was a record, a paper trail, which is not that hard to find, from the building inspector alerting people to the issues on this lot. This was a self-created situation. There's no two ways around it. Laura?
I agree with that. I don't have anything else to add.
It's pretty straightforward.
I would go farther and say that almost all applications are self-created, and but in this case, and therefore it's a minor factor. But in this case, the self-creation weighs against the application much more heavily because of the extraordinary way that the application came about. The applicants today, as regards the zoning code, the applicants today know the same things that they did before they bought the property. Nothing has changed, nothing new has surprised them. The same zoning code has always existed, and they had every reason to know about it, and the many ways in which the property does not conform. So, and yet they chose to go ahead. I mean, they flew in the face of the zoning code to pursue this project.
Right.
An audacious, daring gamble, and so then to throw themselves on the mercy of the ZBA is just hubristic in a sense, and therefore the concept of self-creation looms larger to me than almost anything else here.
Well, the old adage goes, ignorance of the law is no defense. And, codes are local law. a violation of them might result in a fine or whatever, but you're deemed to know them. And so, in essence, the big ask for trying to develop this lot into a residential property had to be pretty clear, or if it wasn't necessarily to the average individual who may not be familiar so much with zoning, to reach out to a developer and ask them, with a little bit of due diligence before you put the money down and purchase the property, what do you think? What am I going to face? Or maybe just go to the building inspector. But obviously the building inspector can't necessarily give opinions in a capacity as a municipal employee, but at the same point in time, if you can go to an expert or to a builder, they might be able to advise you or alert you as to concerns you might be facing. And certainly by looking at the code, this property is less than half the size of the 7,500 square foot minimum lot size, now deemed to be optimum, by the drafters of the code, as far as having, appropriate diffusion of residential ongoings from one lot to the next. So self-created, I would say.
Okay, so if we've been through the 5 criteria. So,
Maybe look at them in balance. Donald, go through it in a balanced
we look
state.
at them in balance. Right.
This is one of the rare, I think this is one of the rare, very, very rare applications we've ever had where every element of the 5 criteria went substantially against the applicant.
Well,
No, the criterion about whether benefit can be achieved by another method is, I believe that would count as being in favor of the application. The applicant has no other alternative.
Well,
So-
but just as you say, by that alone, yeah. But I haven't heard a discussion with regards to the 5 criteria where it has been this negative with regards to the balance of the elements, the FAR balance.
The others weigh against.
right. Right.
But if you want to develop
I
the
think I would,
balance a little bit more, Donald, go ahead.
I think I would be, well, I think, John, you kind of said it. You've got 5 criteria. You've got 1 which favors the applicant, and you've got 4 which do not favor the granting of the variance. And of the 4, 2 of them are Eric makes to me a convincing argument about self-creation, and we all agree that what's driving the problem with this lot size is the substantial nature of the ask, the substantial nature of the amount of square footage needed to be added to make it into what the village considers to be a minimum size lot. The substantial nature of the square footage that would have to be added to even bring it up to the size of the lots that were developed after 1967 that were less than 7,500 square feet those lots were 5,000, 6,000 square foot in size. So this is substantially less
10:15.
than any lot that has been developed post 1967. And I think that that coupled with the fact that the applicant got himself in for, you know, I think that well, we can't know exactly. The applicant states that he has a vision about what he could do on this property, and he's entitled to his vision, and a lot of the vision I can understand, but the applicant had to have known that this was a huge ask, and the audacious nature of it, asking us to go along with this much of a substantial deviation from the code, and imposing the only way for us to not impose very negative impacts on the neighbor would be to go beyond what the applicant was asking and grant more variances to make it work. And now you've got to wonder, what the heck are we doing, you know? So I think that the balancing the self-creation and substantial are big negatives, and then they create the other two negatives, which is detriment to the nearby properties and neighborhood character.
I would even argue that the criterion about detrimental effect or neighborhood character is a substantial one, a strong one, unusually strong. I can't recall seeing one in which there would be such impact on the neighbors.
Right. All right. All right, so John, do we have to, John first, do we have to develop a balancing statement tonight, right now? Because I can't do that. Right.
I think you kind of just did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it. We can just draft it up to what we just discussed is what we can do.
Right. I thought we
Right.
did too. Right.
So I think you're kind of ready to just vote on it.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. So we're going to vote on whether we would grant a variance of 4,440 square feet when the lot area required for this application would be 7,500 square feet.
Yeah, it's a little, so the vote is to allow a single family home on a lot that is 3,360 square feet when the code requires 7,500 square feet, therefore resulting in a variance request of 4,140 square feet.
Right.
And that should be deemed, we'll make a motion in that regard, whether to grant or deny, and on that language from John first. And
Before you do that, just a couple procedural things. Donald, do we have a letter from the County General Municipal Law 239M?
Oh, yeah, we do. We did that way
Okay.
back.
Okay, good. And then the second procedural thing is under SECRA. This is considered a type 2 action because it involves granting area variances to a single family home. So you don't have to worry about making a SECRA negative declaration. So it's pretty much exempt from environmental review because of, again, it only involves a single family home. And with respect to environmental review, meaning you don't need to prepare an environmental impact statement which is a huge document that are usually allocated to much larger projects. There obviously could still be negative environmental impacts, but the point is it doesn't rise to the level of requiring an environmental impact statement. So with that being said, those were the two procedural things I just wanted to confirm. So again, I'll kind of read the motion and you guys can then vote on it. So the motion is to grant a variance to allow a single family home on a substandard lot that is 3,360 square feet when the code requires 7,500 square feet, thus resulting in a variance request of 4,140 square feet. So do we have a motion?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know what?
Yep.
On this 239M thing, you know, I'm thinking that we referred it out for the first application he made way back when. And got a, you know, that they had no interest in it. But I don't know, now I wonder whether we did it for this one, for this new application. Oh, God.
John, would that have?
You know, we have an agreement. We have an agreement with Buckingham County. We made an agreement that we did not, I've got to check with the language of it, but we had a letter of understanding between the county and us that we did not have to refer residential type variances to the county. That you know, commercial things and commercial projects and large condominium stuff like that, yes, but not small ones, because we were going crazy doing 239Ms for a little deck. So they said to us, our village attorney at that time said it's fine as long as you have a letter of agreement. And
okay, that's fine then. All right, so again, we don't have to worry about that.
All right, so I'll continue then. I'm sorry. I just
That's okay.
continue.
So the motion would be to allow construction of a single family home on a 3,360 square foot lot when the code in this zone requires 7,500 square feet, thus resulting in a variance request of 4,140 square feet.
I make that the motion to vote upon, adopting the language of Attorney John First.
Okay, so I'll call the roll. Eric?
I'm not sure I understand. The motion is to grant the variance,
Correct.
and so my vote would be against the motion.
Okay.
John Martin?
Deny based on all our conversations this evening.
Laura?
I vote to deny.
And I vote to deny as well.
Okay, so what I'll do is, based upon the discussion from last meeting and this meeting, I'll draft a written finding of fact and denial. So we have it for our records.
All right.
Excuse me, John, first. I heard John Martin make the motion, but I didn't hear anyone second it.
That's true.
Donald, I think you seconded it, right? Because you were the first one to speak, so.
Right.
Okay, I must have blinked. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, so do we have to go through the rest of the variances, or?
I don't think so.
It seems like if you don't have anything.
Do we reference them, John, in the final order that these were also raised but not addressed because the first one rendered everything else moot?
Correct, yes, I will.
Okay.
All right, so, we've done the minutes, we've dealt with this. I don't see what else we have to do right now, other than get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so John, you'll write stuff up?
Yes, and I'll circulate it to everybody.
John, first. You'll send-
Yep.
All right,
Give me a
Thank
week or two.
okay, thank you very much.
hmm
Enjoy your vacation.
All right, good night all.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.